All right, you made it to the auto claims at fault version. Auto claims, we're going to take a look at how to walk through them, what to do, what not to do, what to expect. I mean, these claims videos, I'm super excited about them because they'll just give you a sense of what to expect in a claim. Man, claims are scary, and I love walking people through claims. I obviously don't love that they have them, but I love walking them through them because I just feel like that's the most important part of what I do, and creating an experience with a claim that gets you through it as quickly as possible, as smoothly as possible, and without as many curveballs as possible is what claims is all about. So hopefully this video will do exactly that for you. Provide you with a foundation. So if you have a claim, or if you're involved in a claim right now and you just found this video and wanted to get a sense of what's about to happen, that we can do that for you and you can have an understanding. So again, it's all about understanding, and we are going to make that happen for you here today. So it's auto claims at fault states. What you'll learn. We're going to talk first about what to do at the scene of the accident. There's a few important things to do when you're there that tons of people forget to do, and you're not going to do that after watching this video. The 4 avenues of fault. So fault is an important part of how claims work in at fault states, and there's 4 ways that can happen. We'll show you what those 4 are. Your claims adjuster. We're going to learn about your claims adjuster, the most important human being in your claims experience, your claims adjuster, and finally the claim process itself, what to expect generally from a claim process. So we'll go from there. Let's review. So we have covered a lot at this point. I mean, we are in the last part of our video series of our course, and we have covered a ton of stuff. So I'll just go over it really quickly. But we started with the basics, policy basics, and we introduced the idea of coverage limits, which we've over and over again gone back to, and in this video we will as well. Property versus liability coverage, a foundation of insurance. Auto policy, we dug right into that. Your homeowner's policy, we dug into that. And finally, on the coverage stuff, your personal umbrella policy. I don't know if you decided that you wanted one, that you needed one, or that you didn't, but hopefully you watched that video and considered a personal umbrella and made your own personal decision. Tiny disclaimer. Gotta say it again, this course is meant to provide very general advice. I am in no way confirming deals about your specific insurance policies. Those conversations should happen between you and your insurance advisor, or in the case of this video, your claims representative. Those conversations are where you will find the actual details of your policy. Let's dig right in. You're at the scene of an auto accident. And I mean, these are not pleasant moments in your life. Hopefully it wasn't a big deal. Hopefully it's not a major situation. But no matter what it is, when car meets car, or whatever happens to create an accident situation for you, it is scary. There's no doubt about it. We've all been, maybe not all of us have been in accidents. I've been in a couple accidents. Maybe you've been in a couple accidents, and they are scary. But just like any other scary situation, the more you know, the better about what to do. So that's what I'm going to talk about right now. So the keys to claim success from the start include, okay, this is obvious. Well, not totally obvious. Depends on the situation. If it's a bad accident, calling the police is obvious. In fact, the cars that are driving by in this situation probably have already called 911. The police will be arriving at this accident. If it's a serious accident, whether you call them or not in our modern world with cell phones and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm going to say is, even if it's a small fender bender, if there's damage or someone may be hurt, a police report is essential. And it's even more essential if you believe that the other person is at fault in the accident. There is only one document that truly proves that the other person is at fault, and that is a police report. If you don't have that, you are relying on, the truth telling of the other person, and hopefully that will happen perfectly fine. That's great, but it just doesn't. Unfortunately, I see all the time where someone changes their story from, yeah, it was my fault, but I don't want the police involved. Can we figure this out on our own? And the person says, I understand. And of course you understand. I get it too. But, you got to get the police involved. It's super important to have that police report. Your insurance company can't do what they need to do without it. So big claims, of course, you call the police. I think the important part of this one is even in small claims, especially if you know that you are not the one at fault, that the other person is at fault, then we need a police report to get us there. The next one is get everybody's insurance info. Even if you've got to just get your phone out and take a picture of their ID card, get everybody's insurance info. You need their name, you need the name of their insurance company, and the policy number. A lot of times the police will say, well, we collected it. And I really think, and I know these are uncomfortable situations, but if you can do it in a way that's reasonable, you need to collect it too. If a police officer gives you a field report, that's really what they should do, is give you a field report with everybody's insurance information. If they do that, great. You don't have to get it from the other people, no problem. But if they don't, if you could just kindly say, hey, can I take a quick picture of your auto ID card, and just go from there so you have that information. It makes everything work so much better if you get everyone's insurance information. So first is call the police. Second, get everyone's insurance information. And finally, and this one's hard too, don't admit fault. We're humans, right? Especially if we did something or we feel like we did something, like we want to get out. We want to apologize. We want to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I'm such an idiot. I really just, I can't be more sorry. I can't be more sorry. Are you okay? All this kinds of stuff. And I think you just have to walk that line finely. Should you be cold and not kind? Absolutely not. Should you, stop from helping them if you can help the other person in the accident? No way. Definitely help as long as it's safe for you to do so. All I'm suggesting is that when you're talking with the other person or the police about the situation, that you just stick with the actual facts without saying whether you think it was your fault or not. This can help you out as the claim goes along tremendously. And if you were at fault, then, your insurance company is going to cover it, and that's just going to be the way it is. It's perfectly fine. If it was your fault, then your insurance company should cover it in an at-fault state. But let that be left to the future decision makers. I just see so many scenarios where people admit fault when maybe it wasn't exactly there because you're nervous, you're scared, it was this weird situation. So don't admit fault. Those are the three things to do at the scene itself. Obviously, the goal is to get safe and get taken care of as quickly as possible, but those three things kind of get you going. Okay. So once things settle, you can submit the claim. Call your company or insurance agent and tell them about the claim. I get phone calls from accident scenes all the time. You can call your agent from the accident scene if it's, the situation fits. That's fine, but you don't have to. I mean, calling from the scene for help or advice or whatever makes total sense, or you're just standing around waiting for the cops. Those are all fine reasons to call your insurance agent, but you don't have to submit it at that point. You can wait till later. Try and have insurance information for all parties if you can. If you don't have all the information, no big deal. Everybody gets that, and we'll be fine with that. They'll figure out the information. So you're submitting the claim. You called, your company. You're describing it, and so many times this happens. If you call the company directly, you're like asking the person questions, and you have all these things you're wondering about, and they don't have any answers for you. And you're like, man, gosh, I just got in this accident. So many things are trying to cross my mind. What's going on? You're speaking with a person whose job is to just collect the information. They're not going to have answers for you. The people that will have the answers for you, I'll get to. But just so you know, when you call, they're unlikely to have the answers, and that's perfectly normal. That's how it works. The answers that you do need from them are as follows. You need a claim number. So make sure you get that claim number from them. They should always have that at the end of your conversation when you're submitting the claim. You can ask for the adjuster's contact information. About 60% of the time they'll say we don't have an adjuster yet, and that's fine, but they should have a phone number that you can call to contact the adjuster at the period of time when that is relevant. It may be the same phone number that you just called, and they will give it to you 24 hours later or something like that, but ask them the adjuster's contact information and understand how to contact them. And finally, ask when you can expect a call from the adjuster. Claims are all about reasonable expectations, and if those expectations aren't met on the other side, engaging them to make sure that they do get met. So the first expectation you should have of the company is to have a phone call from your adjuster. And so in that submission phone call, ask them when you can expect a call, and note that so that if it gets to the end of that period of time, if they say, well, within the next 24 hours, you called at 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon, then by 3 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, you have every right to go ahead and call that contact information that they gave you and engage that adjuster. Now, if you called at 3 o'clock Monday afternoon and you're calling the adjuster at 5 o'clock Monday night, probably not as reasonable. You want to know what reasonable expectations are so that you can follow through with them, and so that if the company doesn't follow through with them, you can reasonably ask them to do so. All right, so those are parts of submitting the claim. So what are the options? What are the possibilities of fault here? Because everything in a claim has to do with fault in an at-fault state. And so, what are the avenues? And there really are 4 of them. And I'll explain those to you here. The first avenue, it's the other person's fault. Okay, and they have insurance. Okay, that's avenue number 1. Avenue number 2 is the other person's fault and they don't have insurance. Again, around 20% of people driving without insurance certainly is a possibility. Avenue number 3, it's split fault, or it's not yet determined. Those are 2 completely different things, but as far as how your claim would go, they're going to look the same. Either it has been determined that both people are at fault, which does happen, or there just hasn't been a determination yet, and for you to move forward with the claim, since there hasn't been a determination, it is going to be assumed that fault is split. And number 4 is that it's your fault. So let's break those down. All right, the other person's fault and they have insurance. That was number 1. There are 2 options here. This is kind of the most interesting one to me and the one I enjoy walking people through the most. You've got 2 options. So you can submit the claim to their insurance. It's their fault, their liability, right? So your bodily injury and your property damage, your damage to your car should be covered by them. And so you could submit it to their insurance company. It doesn't have to be your insurance company at all. Or you can submit it to your insurance company. You can always submit a claim to your insurance company no matter whose fault it is. It's always an option. So if it's their fault and they have insurance, or you're not sure yet, you can submit the claim to their insurance. So let's look at those 2 options and why they're important. And either way is important. This is super important. Either way, it's important to tell your company about the accident in a timely manner. So if you want to pursue the other person's company, I would still call your insurance company and say, hey, this claim happened, give them all the information, and say, at this point, I will be pursuing the other person's insurance company. I do not want you to move forward on the claim. You've done 2 things there. When I explain in the next couple minutes here how it works, you'll understand a little bit more about why you might pursue the other company. But you've told them about the accident in a timely manner, and your policy actually says that you have to tell your company in a timely manner, or they could deny a claim if you call them 60 days down the road. It didn't work out trying the other company. Now you're calling them 60 days later. You could have problems. So definitely give your company a call, but just tell them you're going to pursue the other company. Okay, let's say you're pursuing their insurance company. What are the pros of pursuing their insurance company? Well, it avoids being on your record. I mean, in all likelihood, it will come off of your record no matter what direction you go. But this makes sure that it is never on your record and doesn't have any effect on your premium. So it is a reason here. The biggest reason that people go with the other insurance company is because you avoid your own deductible, because there isn't a deductible if you are using the liability coverage of someone else's policy. And, the rental coverage could be available if you don't have it on your own policy, coverage for a car while your car is out of commission. Going through their insurance is always going to cover that, while going through your own insurance is only going to cover it if you have that coverage on your own vehicle. Okay, and finally, if you don't have collision coverage on your car, so you don't have any coverage for your own car, and you have damage to your own car, then you can't go through your own company because you don't have the coverage for it. And but you could go through their company, and that makes a lot of sense too, and I've definitely done that. The cons of going through their company is you just have less control. You don't know their company. You don't know how their company is going to work. You don't know how they're going to treat you. There's a lot less control going through their company. And then you have to play by their rules. Different companies have different claims rules. Some are easier, some are harder. And so you just have less control. If it's a big box company, then it may be hard to get a hold of people, all that kind of stuff. So going through their company tends to be a little harder than going through yours. All right, what about going through your insurance company? Well, the pros are very simple. You have more control. There's less drama. You know your insurance company, you have coverage. You may have even an insurance agent who you know exactly how to work through, so you have more control. And it can be much quicker because we're not having to figure out all the details of liability. It can be considered your fault until it's figured out as someone else's fault. So it's just fast, easy, it's going to cover quickly. Don't have to deal with it so much. So you've got to decide, do you want to go through their company? Do you want to go through your own company? And then the cons of your own company. The biggest one that people deal with is the deductible. So, you have to pay your deductible if you go through your own company until they figure out fault. And a lot of times you'll get reimbursed for having paid your deductible once the company gets the money from the other company. But you have to pay it up front, and it may be a while before you get it back. And the possibility of being on your record. Again, it should come off of your record after everybody gets paid back and all that kind of stuff. But it can end up on your record. I see that happen plenty of times. So you avoid that. Okay. What if it's the other person's fault, but they don't have insurance? So maybe you pursued their insurance and found out they didn't have insurance. This one's really important because I think people get blindsided a little bit by how this works. You find out they don't have insurance. You're like, okay, well, my uninsured motorist coverage should cover, and it should cover as their liability coverage, right? If you watch the auto video, you've got that all figured out, and that's totally true. But how it actually goes down in the claim process is a little bit different than that. So when you first make the claim, it'll be just like an at-fault accident until the lack of insurance is proven. This means communications between insurance companies, written documents, faxes, things of this nature that can take a while. And so I see it happen over and over where we can tell that the other person doesn't have insurance, that it's going to be covered under your uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage, but you're going to fix your car. It's 3 days after the accident happened. You want your car back, and you're having to pay your deductible. And so, I think that's the biggest thing, is it can be really frustrating as it seems like you're being treated as at fault and coverage seems to be different. You're having to pay your deductible. And you're just like, wait a minute, this wasn't my fault. Well, don't worry. You'll get your deductible back, and ultimately it will be paid through the uninsured motorist coverage part of your policy. But it just has to be proven, and that's a problem, and so that tends to just throw people a little bit. So just know that. That sometimes you have to pay your deductible and then get it back later. That's just the way it works. Okay, so split fault. It was two people's fault, both people's fault, or fault just has not yet been determined. And that's going to be just like in no-fault states. So, how it works there. And that's simply you will cover your own damage and injuries, and other involved parties will cover theirs. So let's use split fault first. This we know you're going to cover your own damage and your own injuries. So your collision, your comprehensive, probably in that case it would be your collision. You pay your deductible, you get your car fixed. That's all well and good. Where it can be a little problematic is, as we talked about in the coverage auto video, there's not a ton of medical coverage in your policy. It's just the medical payments. So, that all you're going to have available to you for any of your injuries is the medical payments coverage on your policy. And so that's something important to consider. In a not yet determined scenario, you're going to be treated just the same way as if it was an at-fault scenario. But if fault is determined to be one party or the other, the insurance companies will figure out the details. You're not going to have to deal with any of that stuff. The only thing that's going to matter to you is, well, one, if your medical payments go above the medical payments coverage you have, then that definitely would be a piece of the puzzle you would engage in. But most of the time in small claims, what you're worried about is your deductible. You had to pay $500 or $1,000, and you're not going to get it back until fault is determined to be the other person, and then your insurance company gets the money from their insurance company, and they will reimburse you for the deductible. So that's split fault or not yet determined fault. And finally, your fault. Your insurance will be responsible for the damages of all parties. It happens. If it's your fault, it's your fault. There's no reason to, lament over it or whatever. You can definitely decide, hey, if I made a bonehead move, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to drive safer or whatever. But an at-fault accident is an at-fault accident. It is what it is, right? So your own policy is going to cover any medical injuries to you with the medical payments coverage. It's going to cover your own car under your collision coverage, probably. And finally, it's going to cover the liabilities of other people. So we'll get into all that in just a second. But I want to introduce you to someone. I want to introduce you to the claims adjuster. Your claims adjuster probably doesn't look like this guy. May not look quite so happy and engaged and willing to be there for you. But he or she is your new best friend. Your claims adjuster is the company representative that makes claim decisions. All these things I'm talking about, all this coverage, all these claim scenarios, this person is at the center of all of it. And I want to tell you one basic thing, and that is be nice to this person. Hopefully this person is nice to you, but whether they are or not doesn't matter how you treat them. I mean, this is just basic fundamentals of human interaction. If you want them to do good by you, you want to treat them well. It's not that if you're a real jerk to them, they would necessarily do everything in their power to ruin your claim. They're going to cover your claim, hopefully, as it's supposed to be. There's just no reason to put them in that position. Be nice to this person. If this person isn't nice to you, take some deep breaths. Do everything you can to have a good relationship with your claims adjuster. Okay, so how does the claims process go? We're talking about your car, your injuries, your liabilities. I kind of started to dig into it a little bit and then got to that claims adjuster, but I just wanted to introduce you to that claims adjuster. But these are the three parts. How are they all going to work? So your car, you are going to first, most of the time, get an estimate. Second, get your car fixed. 3, drive away. I mean, that's simple, right? Shouldn't take much time at all. If only it was truly that simple. I mean, it is those 3 steps. But, oftentimes it can get a little bit complicated. I mean, in the best case scenarios, this is exactly what happens. It's that simple. You take your car in, you go get a rental car. You drive that rental car for a week or 2 weeks while they are giving you the estimate, sending it into the insurance company. The insurance company sends the check. They order the parts. They get the parts. They paint the car. They fix everything up. They give you a call. You drive your rental car back in, drop it off, go get your car, drive away. Everybody's happy. That's the process. It's that simple. But there are, just factors that play in. And I think this is why it's so important to ask your claims adjuster, okay, how is this going to work? It may be that someone from the company needs to go to the collision center and actually see the car, or it may be that certain collision centers don't even need an estimate. You can just take it there and they work with that company and will just seamlessly get it done. There's lots of different ways that this varies. And you can find that out from your claims adjuster by simply saying in your first conversations, okay, I want to understand how this is going to go. Talk me through this step by step. And hopefully they'll say, well, it's step 1, step 2, step 3. And hopefully you're done a week later with your car back good as new. So ask them to describe the process in detail because every company is different. As I just described, they're all different. You never know. Rental reimbursement, if it's a liability situation, so it's the other company, they have to provide you rental coverage, so know that. And they've got to provide you a comparable car. I see people trying to, companies trying to get you like a really little tiny car if you had an SUV and 4 kids before. You should stand up to that because they have to provide you, the language is of like, kind, and quality. So they've got to provide you a like, kind, and quality car. If it's your own company, then it's going to be up to your coverage limits that are stated on your declarations pages. So it's coverage for a rental car while your car is being fixed, and your own policy has coverage limits, their policy, like, kind, and quality. There we go. What if your car's totaled? Totaled is always an interesting situation. Sometimes we love our car. We named our car or whatever, and it's a really sad situation. Sometimes we were done with that car anyway, and it was almost a blessing in disguise. The totaled conversations are always interesting ones. So what is totals? Well, it's when it costs more to fix the car than it's worth. So if your car is worth $10,000 and the damage done is going to cost $12,000 or $13,000 to fix, it doesn't make sense to actually fix that car. It makes more sense to just write you a check and have you go get another car, and that's when we say it's totaled. Yeah, the insurance company writes you a check and it is considered totaled. You can generally expect, everyone wants to know, how much money am I going to get? And it depends on the company. I really feel like company quality, the quality of a company, has a lot to do with your totaled number here. But I'm wrong sometimes. But what I generally say is you can, go onto Kelley Blue Book or one of these trade-in value estimators and look for the trade-in value and consider that the bottom dollar. I mean, it will probably be a little bit higher than that, but I wouldn't get comfortable with a number higher than that. Look at that number and figure that's probably what you're going to get for your car and go from there. So that is your car, coverage for your car. We're either going to fix it or we're going to total it out and give you a check, and you're going to go get a new vehicle with that check. Let's talk about your injuries. Well, it depends on the situation. If we're covering your injuries through their auto insurance, so it was you were not at fault in the accident, someone else was at fault, then it's going to start with their liability limit. So it's totally out of your control. Whatever it is that their policy covers is what will cover your injuries first. And then if their policy runs out of coverage, like we talked about in the auto policy video, then your or underinsured coverage will play in. Whether they had coverage and it ran out or didn't have any coverage at all, then you would see your and underinsured coverage play in. Your auto policy could also cover with medical payments. Medical payments, interestingly, is a no-fault coverage. So it is possible that your medical payments gets used even if the other person is at fault. So if you're talking with your insurance company about it all, remember, medical payments is a no-fault coverage. So that could come into play on your policy depending on the situation. If you're at fault, then it definitely is going to come into play. And then finally, your health insurance will play a role. I don't pretend to have the magic answer to exactly how the health insurance relationship with the auto accident will happen. Really depends on so many factors. But I can guarantee that your health insurance company will come first to your auto policy. They will want to deny the claim and come to your auto policy and see what you have for medical payments. And then what happens from that point varies, based on the situation. But oftentimes your health insurance does play a role in the situation. So your injuries are going to be covered by one or a combination of those four things. Your liabilities. So the accident was your fault and other people were hurt, other people's vehicles were damaged. You're responsible for, the two kinds of damage to others. I just said it, but let's go over it again. So bodily injury is one of those things, or property damage. So let's look at how those go. Well, I mean, it's kind of quick and easy. The great thing about insurance is that you have very little to do with resolving the liability portion of the claim. I just had an email today where someone was talking to me about, well, how much did that claim end up costing? And I told that individual, well, that's, it costs X amount of dollars. That person had no idea. They knew that it was their fault. They knew they didn't have damage to their own vehicle, so they didn't have to deal with that. And that was the end of it for them. The insurance company took care of the rest of it. So liabilities oftentimes are not something you have to deal with it. You just know that the insurance company is taking care of it, and that's the beauty of insurance. The times that you will need to be involved, 2 times that I have on here, there probably are others as well, but clearly if you're asked to testify in court, you're going to have to be involved. You'll have to go and testify in court and be a part of that. And then if the damages exceed your liability limits, well, now your pocketbook is going to be involved because you're going to be paying out whatever the damage is that exceeds your liability limits. And interestingly, at that point, the company lawyers would not be supporting you either, which I'm going to talk about here. So company lawyers really are the ones that provide the coverage. They're taking care of the situation. You don't really have to deal with any of it because they're taking care of it. But there's something I think that's important to tell you. If there isn't a lawsuit involved, the insurance company can settle, whether you think they should or not. They're footing the bill, and the settlement decision is up to them. There's so many times where we just feel like this situation is wrong. This isn't right. This person sued me over something dumb, or whatever it is. I mean, we live in this litigious world, unfortunately, that we have, and people do things that are frustrating. And sometimes insurance companies settle, even when they think it's frustrating, because they understand how much money they're going to have to spend to take it all the way through a court case, and how much money they would have to spend to settle. And sometimes they decide to settle, and that is not something you have control over, whether you like that or not. So I just wanted to throw it out there. That's a part of liability situations that can be frustrating sometimes, but if you understand why it is that way, I mean, it really is all about money and the how much money you're going to have to spend on it. Then at least you can understand it, whether you like it or not. All right. Okay. Rookie mistake. This is an easy one. I mean, this one I preach over and over again. And I already gave you a full earful about it. So I'm going to say it again, though. Being mean to your claims adjuster, just such a rookie mistake. I think that your claims adjuster is a key to the process here. Be nice to that person. See that person as a partner in the process. If you don't like a decision that they're making, try to get at the source, the reason for the decision. If it's the policy, if the policy clearly states something and you just don't like it because oftentimes we think everything's covered, and unfortunately it isn't always covered. But it makes total sense to ask your adjuster to explain his or herself. But don't be mean to your claims adjuster. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to help you. So that's the rookie mistake. All right. What did you learn? We talked about at the scene. We talked about the 4 avenues of fault. We explained your claim adjuster, and I just went over that again. And we talked through the claim process, what could happen. I hope that really helped. I hope if you're in a claim situation right now and you just came back to this video to see how to deal with that claim, I hope you're feeling some clarity right now. And if you are, I hope you go over to that Facebook page and tell us all about it. So what's next? I mean, we just dealt with auto claims. We really only have one more video in this course, and that's it, just one. You're that close to no longer being perplexed about insurance. And I got to say, if you have gone through this course step by step, even before we get to the homeowners claims video, you must be much less perplexed about insurance at this point. But you're that close to being able to tip the hat and know that you really have come to understand home and auto insurance at a deeper level. And in the next video, we'll get familiar with homeowners claims. So I'll go through homeowners claims in a similar way that I just went through auto claims, so you can come to understand how it works. I'll introduce the claims adjuster again, and give you a real sense of how those things work. Okay, claims, they can be scary. I want to hear your stories. I hope you'll head over to the Make Insurance Simple Facebook group right now, and I bet at some point in this video you said, oh my gosh, I remember this situation where, and it was just about exactly what I was talking about. And I would love for you to share that story, whether good or bad. Obviously, be thoughtful about other people on the group and all those kinds of things, but would love to hear your claim stories and what you've experienced, how your claim adjuster was in a situation, what crazy thing happened that shouldn't have happened, or that happened that was awesome. I love those stories where you really were taken amazing care of. That's how it's supposed to go, and I want to hear those stories from you. So head on over there, share your stories, your questions, your comments, and we'll go from there. And if you really want to dig in and just you're ready to go get a drink of water or whatever, and head over to the homeowners claims video. It's going to be your last video, the last hurrah. We'll dig right in, give you a sense of how homeowners claims happen, what you can expect from them, how you can advocate for yourself. Can't wait to help you out. I'm looking forward to seeing you over there in a short moment or in a while.